Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third installment, the third episode of Rising Stars. Just in case you're watching this for the first time and you're wondering what this is all about, Rising Stars is a community of student leaders, emerging student leaders, normal people that want to learn, that want to become better people, that ultimately want to eventually get to a place where they make an impact and a change first on themselves and on the environments that they find themselves in. So I want to encourage you to share this episode. I want to encourage you to invite your friends to come and watch with you because this promises to be an exciting installment. Now, we are going to have a few other episodes in the coming months where we'll be talking to quite a number of interesting people. Some you know, some you don't know. And if you haven't watched the previous two episodes, go on the Moodle platform, go on YouTube and have a look at some of the things that we've been talking about. And we will be discussing a variety of subjects in the coming months. And these are all things that will ultimately help you to become a better person, a better leader, and eventually, a person who will be able to make a greater impact. Now, today, we've got Nande, who is here with us and who's going to be talking to us about life in the real world. And I was just saying to the guys when we were shooting, I'm feeling so nervous for some reason because this is such a serious topic. But just in case you're wondering why this is so necessary, a lot of people, after they graduate, they make so many financial mistakes. There's so much pressure in terms of black tax. There are so many things that we may disregard and maybe think to be not so important, that we can learn from people like yourselves who've been working for such a long time. So firstly, basic introduction on who Nande is. I know who you are, but the people that are watching don't know who Nande is. So who is Nande? I know that you studied at Nelson Mandela University. How was your experience there? And what would you like people to know about you?
Okay, hi everyone who is watching. So as Luphumlo has mentioned, my name is Nande, and I had the pleasure of being one of the students at the Nelson Mandela University, which was known as NMMU in my time.
PE Technicon.
No, I'm not that old. I'm not that old. So it was NMMU at the time. So I started my journey at Nelson Mandela University in 2011. I matriculated in 2010 and I studied an undergrad qualification in economics. I then furthered my studies with a BCom degree in honors. So my experience at
Second Avenue?
Second Ave,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
Second Avenue campus. That's where I did my diploma. And then I moved to South Campus to then further my studies with the BCom degree in economics. I was just saying earlier on that my varsity years were actually quite boring for me because I was so straightforward. Not that I didn't make any mistakes or not that I didn't experience varsity as a whole. However, I think at the time when I started university, my goal was just to get there and study and get my qualification and then get a job. So I think that's why then I had such a narrow vision when it came to university.
You were focused.
I was focused. So I didn't do many of the things that students typically do in university because you've got such freedom. You're now away from your parents. You don't have a curfew. You can go in and out as and when you please. You can study if you want to. You don't study if you don't want to. So you've got such a liberty in university, But for me, as much as I had, that level of liberty, I knew what I was there for.
Yeah.
And ultimately, when I graduated, I graduated with a cum laude in my undergrad. And one of the reasons why I'm proud to say that is because it's not easy being in varsity. It's not easy. It's very challenging. We all come from different backgrounds, financially, language, culture, religion. Yes, we all Gender. You know, there's so much difference, and you get exposed to so many personalities, so many people. You know, you get to interact with different people and what have you. So for me, I think, like I said, one of the reasons why I managed to graduate with a cum laude qualification was because although there was so many things involved, I knew what I was there for.
Yeah.
You know, I had a goal in mind, and I didn't want anything to sort of shift my focus.
Yeah.
So
Not a lot of people are like that. I was completely the opposite. That's why I failed so much in varsity, for those of you who don't know. I want to talk about the transition, because I believe that 5-6 years ago you started working. Firstly, you started working at Nelson Mandela University as an assistant lecturer. And shout out to the university for that, because I remember my first ever client was a university client. You know, the environment was such that as an entrepreneur, that the university gave me a platform to do my business, maybe deliberately or not so deliberately, but there was a conducive platform for me to engage with clients in the form of house comms and all of those things. You know, and some of those relationships have opened doors for me to do the work that I do with staff members at Nelson Mandela University currently. So what I want to ask you is, you know, take us back to your first year after varsity, because, you know, I know you very, very well, and I know one of the things that I know about you is that you have never had to go job searching, you know. So how was that transition for you? Varsity, now you've got your qualification. What next?
my first job actually at the Nelson Mandela University, shout out to them indeed, was a student assistant, not a student lecturer. I then moved on to that later in the years. I was a student assistant. My first paying job was a student assistant at the Nelson Mandela University.
How much do they pay? Don't say. I'm joking. Don't say.
Well, enough for me to buy groceries, have transport, and go to varsity and what have you. And as a student, I always say while I'm working that I wish I could actually be a student, because because you have less responsibilities. You know, if you're on a bursary, your bursary will pay your tuition, it'll pay your residence and what have you. But as soon as you start working, you now have to worry about rent, you have to worry about a car installment and what have you. So my first job was actually a student assistant, and prior to that I was president of the Economic Society.
Wow.
And so after I was a student assistant, I then became a tutor. So after that, before getting my first job at one of the 4 major financial institutions, I became an assistant lecturer. Wow. So I actually had a lot of work experience in the university, which enabled
whilst
me
you were a student.
Whilst I was a student, and it actually helped a lot in me transitioning to a workplace, corporate. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. It helped me a lot in transition, because there's a lot of things that you learn accountability, you learn about time management, simple things, you know, simple things that, because you must remember that although you're studying a degree, you're not always going to do exactly what you studied when you go into the corporate space. I studied a degree in economics. However, the terminology that I learned from economics is actually what I use in the workplace, but the practicality and what have you, I don't use any of that in my current job, you know. So I think when students are in university, although you're there to get a qualification, it's important for you to get involved in so many things. You've got the SRCs, you've got societies, you've got beyond the classroom. We had that at my time. I don't know if the university still has that. So it's very important to actually be involved in such things, because they prepare you for the workplace. Remember, the workplace is not just there for you to start working and getting a salary, but you are there to also get experience, and ultimately that experience, you know, boils over in all facets of your life.
So, I'm with you. I think some of the things that you're speaking about are so important, but I want to zoom in for the purpose of this particular installment in this episode, I want us to zoom into life in the real world. Not that varsity is a false, that's not what we're saying, but we just, because life, in fact, I think the better way to say it would be life post university. Because there's so many things that the minute now you have a qualification, you have your graduation thing, graduation party, now your parents are looking at you in a particular way. Your sister and your cousins are looking at you in a particular way. The community, people automatically expect so much from you, and there's such a lot of pressure. So to the first years and to the second year students that are watching this, how can we prepare them mentally for that type of life? How can they better prepare themselves? In fact, how can they maybe break away from some of the things that you and so many other people experienced, generally? So a lot of people, after they graduate, maybe they get their job. Now the first thing they do is they buy a car that they can't afford. Then they go and live in the most fanciest apartment that they can't afford. Then now they're buying so many clothes, expensive clothes that they can't afford, to such that an extent that at the end of the month, if they're getting a salary of 10,000, they're left with 500 rands to live through the next month. So let's just zoom in on that. What's your advice to the first year and the second year students that are thinking like that now? How can they maybe break free from that?
It's actually funny because when I started working, I know it's normal for everyone when you get your first job and you're now earning a salary, you want to buy your first car, you want to buy your first house. It's the norm, it's the expectation and what have you. But for me, when I started working, that wasn't my focus. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wanting to buy your first car and although I did buy my first car in my first job, but that shouldn't be your focus. I think that if there's one thing I can pinpoint, especially because I've worked for the financial industry for almost 5 years now, if there's one thing I can pinpoint for students in university, your first years, your second years, your graduates for that matter, is the importance of financial literacy. It is so important to educate yourself on finances. Believe you me, the mistakes that I have made today, had I had that financial knowledge, I would probably be far off in life. I would have not made so many wrongs or so many mistakes when it comes to finances. So it's so important, and the time we live in now, there's so much content out there when it comes to financial literacy. You don't have to buy a book. Not all of us love reading.
Have to buy a book. I've got a book here.
Okay, yeah, you can. I'm talking to people who don't enjoy reading. Not all of us enjoy reading, So there's so much content out there on YouTube and social media platforms where you can actually get that education when it comes to financial literacy. So that when you get that first job, you don't get yourself into debt, because that's the first mistake that we make as graduates or as first-time employees. Because success is deemed as you having a car, you having a house, you having this and that, but there's so much more to that. You can start off with investments instead of buying a car.
So they can start off with investments and live, catching taxis all the time.
I'm not saying catch a taxi. What I'm saying is that, for instance, if you live 5 minutes away from your workplace, does it make sense for you to have a car?
Yeah.
Why?
Because when you go out, you don't want to be that person who's always saying, come pick me up, come pick me up.
But you're not going to be going out. The point I'm trying to bring across is that...
I'm kidding, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. The point I'm trying to bring across is that your focus when you get that first paid check shouldn't be on accumulating all these things that are deemed as success.
Yeah.
Get the financial literacy, get the financial knowledge, so that you don't find yourself four years down the line you are deep in debt and you can't get out of it, you know. So if you've got that knowledge, you are in a better position to make better financial decisions when you get that first paycheck. Yeah. And to your point earlier, I know you mentioned that we're going to chat about black tax. It's a reality. You know, it's part of it should be part of your budget as a black person. You should have an emergency fund for black tax, because you are going to have those cousins, you are going to have those sisters that are going to say, now that you're working, can you just help me out with 500 rand? I may be starting off, or I want to go to varsity, I don't have money for an application form. You know what I mean? So that should be part of your budget as a black person, because black tax is a reality.
I'm going to reserve my comments. But this is what I want to ask you.
It's just my opinion.
Yeah, this is what I want to ask you. I want to ask you about two key things. I want to ask you about, you know, you spoke about success. I think that's very important. Our approach to success, how people view success as the accumulation of things and all of that. I think that starts in varsity, that starts in high school and all of that. And I want you spoke about, I think, transparency in terms of your finances and, you know, knowing how much you have and all of that. So let's just zoom in on that success. So how did your view of success evolve and develop when you were sort of becoming or climbing the corporate ladder, so to say?
So you're right, that notion of success starts when you're in high school. I mean, already when you're in high school, you're already planning that, you know, I'm going to go to varsity. After I finish varsity, I'm going to get my first job, and then I'm going to get my first car, I'm going to get a house, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have children. That's the norm, you know. And like I said, there's nothing wrong to that. But for me, 5 years later, being in the corporate space, I see success differently now, based on my experience and like I mentioned earlier, some of the financial mistakes that I made. I see success differently. Now, success for me is not something tangible that I can hold. It's not a car. It's not a house. Those are fruits of your labor, if I can put it that way. You've gone and you've got a job, it's paying you well. Now, for the fruits of your labor, you're able to get a bond, you're able to get vehicle finance for the car that you want, or you can even buy it cash for that matter, if you've saved enough for it. But for me, success now is investing. That's what success is for me. You know, if you've got that first car, if you've got that first house, what is next? You know, your family, you've actually met your expectations, you've met your family's expectations. So what is next for you? So for me, I see success not totally different, but there's more to it than just the tangible things that you can see and people can see and hold. It's now your tax-free investments. It's now your ETFs. It's now
ETF. What's that?
It's a type of investment, but that's not the conversation we're having. You know, it's the type of investments that you've got. If you've got a residential property, are you investing in maybe getting another rental property? So there's more to it than just your house and your car.
Guys, I hope that this is making sense to you, and this will add a bit of value in your life and in how you think and in how you see success and in your expectations and in, you know, your mental readiness for life after varsity. As Nande has said, there's so much to think about. I don't think we'll have time to go through all the other things that you want to speak about. Let's end off the conversation by two things. One, black tax. You just mentioned black tax with a different approach. Secondly, job searching. A lot of people now, even whilst they're studying, they're worried about the job that they are going to get or not going to get. Graduate unemployment is a very huge thing. It's a big reality in South Africa. Youth unemployment is even a bigger reality. So job searching, I would say job creation from my perspective as an entrepreneur, as someone who creates jobs. So how can we better maneuver these two concepts? Number one, black tax. Number two, job searching and the creation of jobs. And I can maybe add one or two things on that one.
Yeah, so black tax is, like I said, it's a reality. And as you're speaking now, I was just thinking about myself when I was in varsity. I was fortunate to have financial aid and complete my studies through that. So
NSFAS.
yes, I NSFAS, and then when I did my honors, I got a
Awesome.
scholarship. I got a scholarship, and but throughout my honors degree, in fact, even prior to that, my sister, she was, yeah, when it came to financial support, in fact, at that time, I didn't even know of the term black tax. But when you speak of it now, that's what it was. Although there wasn't an expectation for her to assist me in varsity, but out of her willingness, she did. At times where maybe my bursary was late in paying my rent, she would chip in.
Yeah.
At times where I didn't have enough money for food, she would chip in and send me some money. So black tax is a reality, and the thing is that, with especially in our generation, our parents weren't fortunate enough to have jobs that are going to give them a retirement fund or a pension that will sustain them until they're 80 or until they're 90. So when their child goes to varsity, they are so excited because they know that at least my child will take care of themselves, and they can also take care of me as their mother or as their father. And there's nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong with that at all. That's why I say that, because we know it's a reality, we can plan for it.
Yeah.
When you get your 10,000 rand salary or your 12,000 rand salary, you might not have to send money on a monthly basis to your parents or to your sister, but you know that there is that expectation, and they might at some point in time ask you for money. So you better prepare for that when you budget for it. So you put 100 rand, 200 rands on a month basis in a separate account. You can even term it black tax. You put money in that account for such cases. And to your point earlier on, you made a point about transparency, and it's so important for your parents to know. Not all of us want to disclose how much we earn to our parents. However, it's so important for them to know your responsibilities now that you've started working. If you're renting, mom, I've got rent to pay. If you've got a car, mom, this car is financed, I have to pay for it on a monthly basis. If you've bought your house, your first house, you've got a bond, you've got rates and taxes, you've got to maintain the house. There's a whole lot of things that come into play. You've got food to buy. So when you are transparent, and it's not that you're saying, no, mom, I cannot give you, but I'm wanting you to know what financial responsibilities I have, so that if there comes a point where I say, actually, mom, I don't have this month, but next month I will give it to you, or to your sister or your brother, whoever is in need at that point in time. So that transparency is very important. It's black tax. We can never run away from it. It's a reality. It's there now. It's always going to be there. There are going to be those siblings who always want assistance, and for some of them, it's a real need. They want to go to work, they want to go to a job interview, they want to apply for studies and what have you. So it's stuff that you really want to assist with, but at that point in time, maybe you can't. So to better prepare for that, be transparent and save for it.
30 seconds. The job market. Just answer that question for us in 30 seconds.
My experience when it came to job hunting was not very seamless. It was not easy, because you are competing amongst so many graduates. We all have got degrees in economics, but what makes you stand out over and above that certificate that you've got? You attended your graduation, over and above that, what makes you stand out, which is very important for first and second years, to involve yourself as much as you can in activities in the university, societies, SRCs, all the programs that the university is there to offer you. Be involved, so that when you go to your first interview and they ask you, so tell us about yourself, what would you do in such a situation? You can give practical examples because you've got that practical knowledge from university, you know. So when they go through your CV and they see Asanda has got a degree in economics, Asanda was a tutor, Asanda was a student assistant, he was president of SRC and what have you, that already makes you stand out. So job hunting is, especially now in our economy, so many people are unemployed, and the reality is that there's not enough jobs for our population or our graduates for that matter. There isn't enough jobs. So to better prepare yourself for that process of job hunting, expose yourself to the maximum in university when it comes to being involved in activities.
Wow, that's great advice. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your experience and your advice with us. And to all of you who are watching, I hope that you have gleaned a few principles and things that you can go back and apply. I think for me, the highlight is this point of exposing yourself to the maximum to, the environment and all of the other things that university has to offer. I think it worked for me. It's still working for me. I've built so many relationships. I've got a friend I was in varsity with who works at another big company now. And through him, I was able to get a big deal because we were friends in varsity. So those relationships really played out. So thank you so much for watching. And we really do hope and, that you have learned so much and that you are going to be a better leader and a better person after watching this. Until next time, stay blessed.